What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking E Forge, and today I'm doing something pretty much entirely different from my usual content because today I'm going to be doing some woodworking. Now, I am obviously not a woodworker normally, and my channel is typically devoted to blacksmithing content, but I decided that it was high time to make some things for my house to add some decorative flair and give my house a bit of my own personal touch in order to make it feel a little homier. So I've got a couple pieces of just simple pine that I got at a hardware store, and I'm going to be turning these into a towel shelving unit for my bathroom with a couple of horseshoes on the front and incorporating a small bar for hanging towels on at the bottom of it. So let's see how this turns out, and let's get rocking. Age-old adage of measure twice, cut once is definitely a real thing. Nope. There we go. That looks more like 3/4 of an inch. This is the first time I'm using a router, so wish me luck. I'm going to be cutting out dados about 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8 inch deep, so that I can seat a shelf in each of these dados. There's going to be 3 shelves, and the end of each shelf is going to have a nice little decorative horseshoe screwed into the end of them, and then a towel will sit on top of each one. Well, y'all keep telling me you like me showing my mistakes, so we'll keep the trend going. Now maybe somebody in the woodworking community can tell me what I was doing wrong to get these absolute nastiness out of the router. But I'm going to go ahead and not use this board, I guess. But I'm going to use this one for practice cuts, or practice dado cuts on the router, because I'm obviously did something wrong here. So wish me luck. Now that turned out a lot better. Still not perfect for sure, but a lot better than the first one, and a little more centered. I think the big thing is I need to just make sure I got a lot of pressure into the square while I'm working with it. That one's not quite square, which is annoying. I clamped this thing wrong, unfortunately, but it'll do. It will probably hardly be noticeable. It's like less than 1 degree out of square. All right, so now I've got a 1/4 inch round over that I'm taking on all of the edges, and in hindsight I probably should have done this before I cut out the dados, but that's all right, I am learning. All right, so I'm marking this at 6 1/4 inches. I almost marked it at 6 inches, but I remembered I wanted these shelves to be 6 inches out from the main body of the shelving unit, and in order to facilitate that 1/4 inch dado, I needed a 1/4 inch measured extra on these shelves. Each shelf will hold a single rolled towel, and then on the front of each shelf there will be a horseshoe as decoration, and I think it'll look really nice in my bathroom holding my bath towels. And it'll look like that on the front. So all in all, I think this is turning out pretty all right. I'm going to go ahead and grab my orbital sander, and I'm just going to sand down all of these faces and edges to 120 grit, and then we'll get some stain on these things before we glue it all together. All right, so I've realized that in order to get this even, I'm going to have to go ahead and stain one side and all the edges and then sand this side again, because I get a lot of splotchiness and runoff as I brush down the edges, and that's probably because I don't know what I'm doing, but that's okay. I am not a professed woodworker by trade, and as such, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. And hopefully that'll do it for the actual staining process of the project. And then we'll be able to get to the glue up of the shelves and to move on to actually forging the towel rack or towel hanger that I'm trying to do. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right, so now that this is at least mostly dry, it's cooled down quite a bit here where I live, and as a result, it's still a little tacky in spots. But now is time to glue this thing up and get these things kind of more stable. And then I'll continue to let it dry fully once it's all kind of glued up, and I'm gonna put some screws in through the back of each shelf once that glue has set, so that I guarantee that there's no major failures in this, in this shelving unit. And what I'm going to do is glue in each. I'm gonna start in the middle so that I can verify square when I glue it, and then I'm going to move to either edge as I go. And I don't have enough of these long clamps to clamp everything together, so I'm going to put this piece of wood on top of at least two of them and then clamp that down to this, and that should theoretically keep everything in line while clamping everything together, and then I'll use the two clamps for the final board by itself. I hope I've demonstrated why I don't woodwork often. I just don't enjoy it as much as blacksmithing. Got to line up my grains, at least to an extent, but let's get some glue in there first. I didn't want to glue up on the side like this because the glue's gonna run, and it's going to be hard to visually see if I get this board centered between the two sides. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Unluckily, but luckily, this board has a little bit of cupping in it, so it kind of keeps itself in while I fiddle around with trying to get it aligned correctly. Oh, come on. Also makes it harder to move. I think that's gonna be pretty all right there. I actually stole the clamps off my poor busted woodworking table. All right. How do you woodworkers do this? All right, so this is all clamped up. I'm gonna let this set up and dry. I'm gonna clean off all the extra glue with a shop towel so that the squeeze out doesn't mess up the lines of the shelving unit itself. And then we will get to the blacksmithing portion of this video. You didn't think I could get through a video without smithing at least a little bit, did you? All right, so as the forge heats up, I'm gonna talk my way through this. I've got 3 different sizes and styles of horseshoes, and that's just gonna be the top, middle, and bottom shelf, just kind of in descending order of size, pretty much just because this is these little horseshoes I have available. Now, 2 of the 3 have these little toe hooks that go over a horse's hoof, kind of hold things in place, and I don't want those. Mostly to match this shoe, but also because I don't want these to hang up on the towels. I don't think they would super poorly if they sat like that on the shelf and the towel's sitting here anyway, but I want them all to kind of visually match as much as I can beyond their physical size and difference in shape. I'm gonna go ahead and take these over to the post vise and just cut these off using a hacksaw. Maybe the bandsaw. I wonder if I can get this upright like that on the bandsaw and get those cut. I'm gonna give that a shot. Now I'm gonna touch these up on the grinder just to get rid of the sharp edges that are left over and throw these in the forge to clean up all of this rust real easy, and I'll show you that in a second. So I noticed one of the branches on one of these shoes is not lined up appropriately. And farriers, you can tell I am not a farrier. So I want these all to be flat, obviously, as I'm using the rounding side of my hand here. Now, it might take a couple of tries here, but I've thrown it in the fire to A, burn out any dirt, dust, and everything that was kind of packed into the grooves of these shoes, and to kind of just burn off all that rust. And I'm just brushing it down as well as I can. And I'm just gonna do this for all of the shoes. And now I'm just going to use my drill press with a wire wheel attachment to try to get in here and clean these things up a little better. Because they're, on this shoe in particular, seems like there's almost some concrete that has been packed into the channels. So I'm going to see if I can get that out with the wire wheel. I'm gonna go ahead and clean off all of the shoes using this, just to make sure there's no rust on them before I put a layer of black paint on these. I think that'll look pretty good. All right, so I seem to be getting some progress made by just chiseling out the concrete or whatever this stuff is using my cold chisel. Which is good because I don't want it in there if I can get it out. At the very least, I'll get these channels cleaned up and looking better, not so nasty and rough and grimy looking before I paint. And then I may end up replacing this shoe eventually, depending on how it turns out. And so far I've found that a nail actually works pretty well at getting through, back punching through these nail holes. Ironically. All right, so now, thankfully, I was able to clean up these horseshoes all pretty well. I've got some black enamel spray paint that I'm just gonna spray these down with. I don't know if it's gonna be a little too dark with the black walnut, but figured black was going to be pretty much the only good looking color other than just the plain steel of these horseshoes, and given that it's going in my bathroom, I wanted to coat these in some sort of paint in order to prevent rust. So I'm just gonna spray paint these down on one side, let it dry, spray paint the other side and let it dry, and then we'll get on to the next part of this project, the towel bar. All right, so I've got this piece of 3/8 inch square stock that I'm going to be using to make this towel bar. And the plan here is to flatten about 1.5 inches of steel at one end of this bar, measure out about 4 inches for the standoff distance from the actual shelf itself so that the bar kind of sticks out from the back of the shelf. And then I need at least 8 inches in width to hang a folded in half hand towel on another 4 inches, and then another 1.5 inches, and I think that should get me an okay looking little towel bar to screw into the bottom portion of the shelf. And then I'm going to put just a nice decorative simple twist in this, one direction on one side of the center and the opposite direction on the other side, so that it kind of twists down in both directions to the center of the bar. So let's get this to the fire and let's keep on rocking. And I'm just going to flatten this down so I can drill a couple holes through for some screws. To avoid having this kind of lump just kind of easily visible on the final product, what I'm going to end up doing is use this as a guide to actually bend it the opposite direction over the edge of the anvil in order to kick it off at an angle and kind of blend that into a transition of the actual mounting bracket, so to speak, of the towel bar as this surface lies flat against the board of the back of the shelving unit. Now, getting both of these brackets, so to speak, the same size and shape is going to be pretty tough, but that looks pretty good to me. And I'm going to wait to kick that off until I've gotten the whole thing kind of worked out and I'm ready to shape the final piece or the final product. And I'm just planishing here to make sure the back is as smooth as I can get it. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure off 4 inches, 8 inches, 4 inches, and then another 1.5 inches, and I'm going to mark each one of those very lightly with my center punch. Okay, maybe not that lightly. That's better. I got to be able to see it, obviously. All right, now I'm going to go cut this off at this 1.5 inch point, flatten the other mounting bracket portion, and then we'll get to twisting this from the center point. And actually, while I'm here, I'm going to mark the center point of this section so that I can twist around it. Awesome. So the next step I'm going to do here is just heat this up and knock down all of these corners so that I get a nice, just kind of a rounded corner twist on both sides of this bar. All right, so now it is time to heat this thing back up, throw this thing in the vise at that center point mark that I made, and twist one direction on one end and the opposite direction on the other end so that they all kind of converge to that center. And I went ahead and cooled off the end so that I could grab this with my wrench. I think I'm going to leave this at 1 1/4 twists, and the next twist that I have to do is heat this side up and then clamp it and then twist it that direction in order to get the same directional twist. All right, there's one. All right, so now I'm going to come in. I think I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to bend using my bending fork at the point, wherever it is, there. At that bending point, or at that mark, and I'm using my handmade bending fork that I made in my previous video. Uh-oh. And I'm missing the mark, I think. That's where I made it. Okay, and I'll get that with the other one as well. And that is 7 inches wide. I'm gonna need to unbend this, I guess. Go ahead and move my pivot point for the bend further out so that I can get it back to about 8 inches in width on this main portion. It also occurred to me that the first time I actually bent this, I bent this the wrong direction for this back edge or back face of this portion to bend out and actually become the, I need to drill holes here now that I think about it, and actually become the mounting bracket. I had them rotated 90 degrees out of the plane of what I was trying to do, and that actually wasn't going to work at all. So I'm glad that I ended up having to straighten this out because it actually helped me bend this into the right spot or right location instead of having to awkwardly twist my way around and figure it out from there. Now you notice I'm bending this more than 90 degrees, and that's because I want these to be in from the edge of the board a little bit so that I can screw this into the front and make a nice kind of decorative bar out of it. Yeah, it's definitely not even, unfortunately. I ended up bending too far toward the tongs, which is rather frustrating. So I'm gonna have to open this up a little bit and refine that bend, but I'm not gonna make you watch me fiddle with this to get it into the absolute perfect shape. So I will see you at the drill press. And the first thing I need to do here is open up this corner a little bit. Just kind of curve it over a little bit more. And I'm using wood and this wood stump so that I don't further mess up any of the twists here. It's looking better. This is gonna need to be twisted back into alignment. That's okay. All right, I'm gonna do that. Same thing on the other side. Not symmetrical as I'd like it to be, and I need this to bend outward. I'm gonna have to use my bending wrench to do that. This seemed to have worked with the other side, just iteratively bending it in and bending this side out. Now I've got to measure how far apart these are. 7 inches. I don't know how they will fit. That's not too bad. One is higher than the other. There's just no end to fiddling with projects like this. All right, I think that is all I'm going to show you as far as trying to fiddle with the shape of this, because this is going to take me another 2 hours to get perfect. And well, no one wants to watch a video that long. So I'm gonna keep fiddling with this thing. I'm gonna use the stump and my half an axe handle and the bending fork and all sorts of stuff to get this thing into the best alignment I possibly can. And then we will get this thing spray painted black, and I'll see you there in a little bit. All right, so this is about as good as I can get it. It ain't perfect for sure, but I'm just gonna lightly brush every surface before I let this cool down, and then spray paint it black, just like the horseshoes, so it all kind of blends together. Go ahead and toss this other side back in the fire, take care of it, and I'll see you at the spray painting box. All right, this is cool to the touch now. I've done a little bit of grinding on the brackets, kind of even up the surface. I'm gonna go ahead and just cold touch mark this on both brackets. And I'm doing this cold because I want to be able to really control where on the piece I'm actually doing this. And I'm sure, inevitably still get it off center. Okay, one down. Not too bad. All right, so we've got touch marked on both. This is all cool to the touch and as brushed up as I can get it with the wire wheel. So I'm gonna toss it in the spray paint box, spray paint this up, and we'll move back inside to go put the horseshoes on the front of each of those shelves inside, and then let this dry, and we'll be ready to put this on and then put everything up on the wall. And I'll have to get the other side here. It's a quick dry spray paint, so I'll get it once it dries on the top of the bar here. I moved this portion of the project inside my house onto the dining room table because it was so cold outside. I didn't figure the glue would set up, and I wanted to give the stain enough time to actually finish drying, and I figured the warmth inside was going to do it much better than the alternative. And looks like the glue is set, which is great. I'm just gonna go ahead, it is still tacky, unfortunately, but I'm just gonna go ahead and drill into the back of this, just using my hand drill, and put some screws in here to make sure it holds together all right. I'm just drilling 2 holes each shelf for the time being. I'll probably put a third in the middle later, but I only brought 6 screws. This pine is just soft enough to where that screwing in these wood screws will drive the head deep and flush with the back, so I don't have to worry about countersinking the holes or anything of that nature. All right. There should be no major problems there now. The stain is still pretty tacky, and I've got what looks to be a lot of glue back here on that portion, which is annoying. I wiped every corner down and somehow it still ended up messed up. Figures. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave this to continue drying. Each of these shelves are going to hold a bath towel. The horseshoes are going to go on the ends of each of these shelves just as decoration, and each bath towel will be rolled up, and then at the bottom down here we'll connect the hand towel rack, and I'll have a folded over hand towel hanging down as a spot to dry your hands after you wash your hands. So that's the idea there. And I think it'll turn out pretty darn nice once everything dries. If I could get it to dry, that'd be awesome. So in putting on my, or in preparation for putting on my horseshoes, I was grabbing some screws and realized that no screw that I have, nor any that I bought, fit through the holes of the horseshoes. So I'm gonna have to go remount these holes on the drill press real quick in order to fit even these tiny little screws, and then I can get these screwed on the front of these shelves. I'm thinking I obviously need to step up a size because that didn't fit. And there we go. Now getting the horseshoes centered on each of these shelves is going to be interesting. In order to do that, I'm going to measure this 7 1/10 inches across, which means the center point is 3.5 and half a tenth, or a 20th, across. I'm doing this in pencil really lightly so that I can't see it. And then I know that at least for this top horseshoe, the holes are 3 1/10 inches apart, which means 1.55 inches. Not me checking my calculator. Yep, 1.55. So I want to do, I think that's the center point. 1.5, and this is just rough, 1.55, and then I'm just gonna eyeball the center line here. Okay, that's gonna give me a good gauge to line up where I want the shoe. All right. And I'll probably end up touching these up with black paint later. I don't have any canned black paint, I just have the spray paint, and I'm not gonna spray the screws and risk getting a bunch of overspray. I'm gonna go ahead and just drill this one through the shoe. Not bad. I had to figure out how to mount the towel bar in level, because there's no shot that the holes or the brackets are perfectly level, but I want the bar to be level and pretty well in line with the back of the shelving unit. So I'm just gonna eyeball this, because that always goes well, right? And I've got bigger screws that are a little bit longer, a little bit wider, that I pre-drilled these holes to size for, which works good. All right. And there is the final product. It stands on its own even, which is pretty great. So the next step in this process for me is going to be hanging this in my bathroom. But I'm not going to put you through watching me go through the process of getting drywall anchors and all of this level and struggling to hang it on the wall by myself. So that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video and liked seeing me do something a little bit different for this channel, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, or ring that notification bell. If you want to support me and the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link is in the description below the video, or please consider becoming a member on my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking.